Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Cook County Housing and Redevelopment Authority, Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. First note that I have is that this is the third anniversary of the first meeting of the board of the HRA, which was November 17th of 2021. And so here we are, 3 active years later, and glad to be here. I also note the attendance of a quorum in Commissioners Olson, Hanson, O'Brien, and Gabler. And with thanks to the county board, we've got a new commissioner approved for Nick Lamour. Was not able to be at this meeting. He's out of town, but will be at our December meeting. So we will welcome him at that time. Approval of the agenda. Any comments or thoughts, or is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move approval of the agenda, just noting the typo and resolution authorizing the Housing and Redevelopment Authority.
Yes, and Chair Gabler caught a couple of those. Apologies, those have been corrected for the formal
Did you have spell check?
record. Apparently no.
Yeah.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Approval of the October 2024 meeting minutes. Any comments or thoughts or a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move to approve those minutes.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have opportunity for public comment next on the agenda. That gives us a chance to introduce Heidi Krampitz, the new Executive Director of the Cook County Economic Development Authority. We're excited that she's here, and she spent 5.5 years recently at Kanabec County in the same type of position. So Heidi, would love you to get to the microphone and tell us a little bit about yourself. I think either one.
Okay.
Yeah. Please.
I'm not going to be on camera, am I? Oh, here I am.
Yeah,
Back of your head, yeah.
Interrogation.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Heidi Krampitz. All I've done my whole career is economic development. I love it. Continue to love it in general. I did take a 2.5-year break just up until now after my last position in Kanabec. So I was there. That was my last position. Same thing, and it was very similar to this EDA, as I was the only staff person for the EDA, and so very, very similar. Much different communities, of course. The county seat for Kanabec County is Mora, Minnesota, if you're familiar with Mora at all. But my background is I just have a little arts degree from St. Cloud State in community development, and most of the kids who received that degree back in the day became city planners. But I was one of the few who was interested in economic development, so and I stayed in it ever since. Most of my experience was in suburbs of the Twin Cities, and then Kanabec was actually my first more smaller town rural experience in economic development. So that's what I bring here, and I'm just excited to get back into the field and bring some fresh eyes and some just whatever I can do to help the community is what I'm here for. Just because I believe in economic development and what it can do for the community for years to come. So
We're glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for being here, and we're going to be embarking on a process of a new director ourselves, and we would hope and expect that director will work closely with you and vice versa, supporting each other, because the community needs all the help it can get, and that would include both of our agencies. So, but
I look forward to working with whoever you find, and I was looking forward to working with Jason for sure, but I think there's always that it has to be that very, very close partnership between EDA and HRA for a successful, thriving community.
When once the job is posted, feel free to refer people.
I will, I'll do that, for sure.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. On to new business, we have 3 resolutions here to consider. Jason, would you take us through those?
Sure, Chair. Resolution 2416 is a resolution authorizing the Housing Redevelopment Authority of Cook County, Minnesota to enter into an agreement for professional services with Ellers, Inc. So obviously before I depart, I want to make sure we just tie up the loose ends as much as I can. And both this and Resolution 2417 are to renew our existing contracts with Ellers for financial services, and then with Freiberger Law Firm for our legal services. Our existing contracts expire at the end of the year, so this is just to renew them with up to amounts that include what we requested from our budget. So, and it's obviously it's a pay-as-you-go service, so we pay for what we receive.
Well, and I think you've done a really judicious job of using those consultants, and it shows up in their billing and well within our budget, so thanks for that. But is there a motion on Resolution 2416 to retain Ellers again for financial service consulting?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 2417, with regard to services from the law firm Freiberger Buchanan. Is there a motion to approve that agreement also?
I'll move approval.
It's been moved
Second.
and it's been seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 2418, Jason, need your help again?
Sure. Sorry, I'm just typing the minute notes here quick. So Resolution 2418 is authorizing the Duluth HRA to operate a Section 8 rent subsidy program within Cook County. So just a reminder for the general public, this has come up in my 2.5 years quite a number of times because we have been able to help projects like Birchwood and Harborview. The Duluth HRA manages Section 8 vouchers and programs for the entire North Shore. Lake County HRA, Two Harbors HRA are just so much less the Cook County HRA are small enough operations where we all basically, it's similar to the City of Grand Marais authorizing the county HRA to operate within its jurisdiction. We're authorizing the Duluth HRA to operate in Cook County jurisdiction for this program. We haven't seen this before. My colleague and counterpart, Jill Keppers, the director of the Duluth HRA, reached out and said, hey, HUD is just requesting that we do this for 2024 and 2025. So it's a newer thing for them to get it re-upped or renewed. So this is pro forma, just to make sure that we give the thumbs up for them to continue doing that. I highly recommend it. You do not want the Cook County HRA managing Section 8 program in Cook County. They have 55 or 60 employees, so I think it's great.
A question, so I understand it, and if we take Birch Park as an example, will they, up to this point, we've been the primary interface with the property owner, and am I understanding correctly that they would be the primary interface for the Section 8 tenants, or what's the scope? How would the scope of responsibilities differ or break down for a project like Birch Park between the HRA from Cook County and the Duluth HRA?
Great question, Commissioner. Really the distinction here is, so on the front side where we have been involved has been helping with rehabilitation or bring dollars to encourage affordability or maintain affordability. That's still going to be the Cook County HRA's purview. Really all this is saying is HUD, who provides the Section 8 programs and vouchers, they need to ensure that we are okay with not managing that program in Cook County.
Mm-hmm.
So Duluth HRA is where the line stops for them is they work with the building owners and with tenants to enter into Section 8 contracts for their units.
Okay.
So we're outsourcing that gratefully, in my opinion, to the Duluth HRA.
Makes sense.
Thanks,
I'll move to approve Resolution 2418.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay? None. At this stage, we're going to item D, Executive Director Transition. I think we've been given a letter of resignation by Jason Hale, and he's been very generous in his offer to stay and help now as our discussion has gone through the end of the year, stay as Executive Director. Jason, I'd like you to confirm that I'm not just thinking wishfully.
Commissioner, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Had a change of heart. Yeah.
Just to show up today.
No, I confirm that. I talked to you about if the board would like me to help with the transition as interim in any capacity. Really, I was just hoping to squeeze in a couple weeks of vacation, and I just don't think it's going to happen this year. So I just said it made more sense to just continue through the end of the year, and then we can obviously talk about if interim makes any sense or not. But I offered to do that, except I'm taking a couple days off around Christmas. So just to be clear.
Well, could someone offer a motion that would accept gratefully and with a lot of regret the resignation of Jason Hale, effective through the end of 2024 as Executive Director?
If we don't move, does he have to stay?
Yeah, right. I was going to ask the same question.
That's a really good question. I'm not really sure how that works.
Well, we
I think
could
it's probably
we could
illegal.
Talk to our legal counsel.
called slavery,
I guess,
yeah.
but-
Yeah, I don't want to find out.
I'll make the motion with extreme regret.
Thank you, Commissioner.
It's been moved, is it seconded?
I'll second it with regret and gratitude.
All right, thanks. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nothing. I'd like to just take a few seconds here, talk about a process that we hope to use, expect to use. We do need to review the job description from the first go-around that we've had, and I'd like the Personnel Committee, which would be Commissioner O'Brien and Commissioner Sullivan representing the county board at this stage, and me, to provide that look at those issues, redraft the job description, and then proceed with getting a job posted. We would expect and hope the county will be posting the job for us. I'm also going to be in touch with Minnesota Housing Partnership to help us guide that process. They were very instrumental the first time around, and they know us, and I think that we can get very reasonable help from them in this effort. So that's my expectation at this point. But I think it would be helpful if we found a date for a special meeting, possibly to then adopt the job description and authorize posting the job. I think that really should be a separate item. So looking at the calendar, our next formal meeting is the 18th of December. But I'm hoping that perhaps somewhere the Thursday, December 5th or Friday, December 6th might work for the members of the committee anyway. Well, actually for the full board, because we need to do a formal action. So if one of those dates works.
Both those dates work for me.
I would be available if you want me included as a member of the Personnel Committee. I'd be available between 10 and 12 on that day.
Which day? 5th?
The 5th.
5th, okay. Well, could we set 10 o'clock, the 5th?
Yeah.
And Jason, if you
Check
could
for-
make sure we get the proper notice posted of the special meeting.
Sure. I want to double check this, Chair. So what time is this supposed to be at?
10 o'clock
10
on the
a.m.
5th.
Thursday the 5th.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. I guess you'd be an important
Well, I was gonna, well, I'm trying to, so this is not a personnel closed meeting, of course. This is an open and special meeting.
It's an open meeting.
This would be a special meeting.
Okay, and I just want to be clear, even with the posting, the intent is to give commissioners time to review and the personnel committee to maybe redraft the job description or make edits, or?
Well, yeah, I guess my comment would be that I think that the job description is going to require very little editing from what I've seen. So unfortunately, I'm not available, unless we could do it by email. I'm not available for a meeting next week, but I, we could meet as early as this Friday if we wanted to.
Yep, we could do that.
Yeah.
But maybe a Zoom?
Well,
we-
yeah, we could do a Zoom for the personnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the purposes of redrafting or making any edits?
Well, I was thinking just to approve it, because I think that, I don't think it's going to take a lot of,
I think if any comments are, need to be made, we could make them in an email. I mean, just
Yeah.
the committee members, we're keeping the committee to 2 board members so that it doesn't require a formal meeting
Well,
at this
yeah,
point.
you'd have to have,
And,
if you had 3, it would
but
be
we can do it by email
Can we approve?
in the
it by
meantime.
Can we approve the job description by email and authorize publishing? Okay, let's do that, because it's, I think we can.
We should check your bylaws. The
think we're
Personnel
talking-
Committee
yeah.
can recommend it, but I think you need to look at your bylaws. I don't believe you can vote by email.
No, the
we're
committee
talking
could,
about two
but
different
yeah,
things here.
but the
Right.
board,
Okay.
but the
But the
board
board
cannot.
would still need
That's
to meet
right.
on the.
So the Personnel Committee will meet and develop a recommendation, and then we'll actually meet in person to
On
approve it.
the 5th, yes.
Okay, I was thinking we could accelerate the 5th, but.
That's great.
And I'm going to check to see if this room is available right now.
Or we could meet.
Part of the reason I'm asking is because I'm just cognizant of the clock ticking.
Right,
Yeah.
And if,
if we want to get over that
Well,
with you.
we could
Right.
meet sooner than the 5th, too. It's okay
Well,
with
could we
me.
meet, could we meet on
Yeah.
Friday? Could we meet this Friday?
Sure, I'm open Friday.
well, I'm not sure that you need to vote on the job description at all, is I guess
Okay.
the point. It's more of a back-of-house document. It's not a resolution. It's not a formal policy. It's
Okay.
just you know what I mean? It's more of an administrative document.
Yeah.
So my point is, if you have edits, maybe you could set a deadline for people to provide edits by X date, and then that can be, the final draft, and that way we could post it sooner.
Good.
Um,
I like that.
If you want to have more of a robust conversation around the job, you're certainly welcome to. I'm just thinking if there aren't a lot of edits to make, and we updated it last year, then maybe we'll only take a kind of a cursory review. I can aggregate any changes you have, and then my question is just, again, I don't want, my intent is not to rush it, it's just to understand, like, I want to be able to, if there's any overlap or ability to get someone in sooner, that's ideal. So if the board, if you could talk about where you want to post it, when you want to post it, that could be a separate meeting as well. Just what's the most expeditious way to get the ball rolling and things posted?
Would it work if we had, let's just.
We could meet this Friday, which you suggested.
Yeah, or we could have comments due by, say, noon on Friday, and you and I could meet on Friday afternoon, have a personnel meeting, and then it's done.
Yeah,
And
do
we're ready
we
to close.
really need a special board meeting then?
Then we probably don't.
I think Jason's saying, no,
Discuss.
we don't,
The
we
three of
don't need it
us.
to be formally voted on.
Well,
So-
then,
That works.
let's leave it like that.
Yeah.
By Friday, comments through Jason.
Yeah. By noon, and we can set up, what's your
Great.
schedule look like on Friday?
Friday, I'm pretty flexible,
You
so,
want to meet at 1 or something like that?
sure, that
Okay.
works well.
So just to be clear, the 5th is off.
5th is off.
Okay.
It is
Well, let's just assume that the Personnel Committee is able to make those edits by Friday, so that I have a finished document on Monday, the 25th of
right, and then
November.
we can
Okay.
post.
Then the question is, then my next question for the board is, where would you like me to post it? And when?
Well, hopefully the county.
The county would post it,
To you,
and that
please.
goes on the AMC website as well as our own website. But I really think that Minnesota Housing is a key place.
They are, and I'm sure we can get their involvement. I'll make sure.
I think those would be
I'll
the
make sure they.
primary.
We can, I'll shake the bushes in my own sort of personal housing network. I'm wondering having gone through this process very recently with the EDA, I'm wondering, what was helpful is to have someone who's like coordinating and managing any interviews or like that whole process. It'd be probably a little irregular for me to do it as the existing
Yes.
current director. So I guess we would need to have as part of that posting, who do questions and resumes, et cetera, go to? And maybe we can't answer that tonight, but I think that's important to.
I would suggest that the default would be to the chairman.
I think that would be.
That's reasonable.
So in the posting of the, submit resumes and any questions to William Gabler, use your email address or what have you.
Yep.
So forgive me, I'm being militant about them, but these are the things that I want to make sure we get, while we have an open meeting and we have to talk about it in an open meeting. Then the next question is going to be any changes to, so there's an employee contract. We don't give, we don't show that ahead of time. That's after, negotiation, but how do you want to post a salary range?
Let us talk about that in the Personnel Committee, but basically, I'm thinking roughly the same as the EDA and go from there. But, and then the contract itself needs to be finalized after we've got somebody identified rather than before, but if,
Just for clarification, the salary range is posted in the job description, that's correct?
It's not yet.
No, but it should be, right?
Correct, that's what I want to make sure of
It
when
will
we're
be.
posting it.
Yeah,
So right now, the job description doesn't have one.
right, I noticed that.
So what would be helpful for me, from a process perspective, is someone could make a motion to authorize the hiring, or Personnel Committee to finalize the job description and the salary starting, or, salary range, so that the board is giving that, so that we can issue it right away. Does that make sense?
Yep.
yes.
So I'll move to authorize the Personnel Committee to develop a final draft of the job description, including a salary range.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the question of proceeding at this stage? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Right. We're rolling.
Thank you.
We're rolling. Also, the Personnel Committee will have an exit interview with Jason, December 10th, I think we set it, and, or is it?
I think it's the 5th.
It's the 5th,
Yeah.
it's at 10 o'clock
Yeah.
on the 5th. yeah. And so we'll be sharing that with the other commissioners as well, but keeping it to just the two of the board members so that we can do that and get the benefit of Jason's opinions on what's going on.
And, Bill, what's the location for that that's here?
But speaking of opinions of what's going on, I'd like to give each commissioner a chance here to comment on a couple of aspects. One is Jason and his service. The second is the HRA itself at this stage, and any thoughts about where we might be going that we should be considering and thinking about in relation to even the job description at some point. But I think it just be incumbent to share a few thoughts, each one of us, on where we are as well and where we're going. So anyone want to start?
I'll
Commissioner
start.
O'Brien?
Sure. No, I think that I enjoyed your reflecting that this was the third year of the HRA, which is pretty much created out of whole cloth, and I think that it's a very a lot's been done over the past 3 years. I think that I think the committee deserves credit for getting the ball rolling, and I think Jason deserves credit for exceeding our expectations in terms of building a pipeline of projects and seeing several of those projects through to beginning of construction. I think that there's a personal quality that I'd like to highlight that I think has been a key part of his success and his, I mean, I think that he came into an environment where there was a tailwind of support for housing in the county, and that was to your favor.
Mm-hmm.
You came in with tremendous amount of experience and much more knowledge about housing than anybody else in the county. And you could have been kind of arrogant about that, and you weren't. I think that part of what made Jason very effective in the position was he was, I think, just took great pains to be respectful of and professional in dealings with all the political stakeholders and others that were involved in the business, and I think that paid dividends in terms of maintaining the goodwill that we had, and helping us to continue to maintain the support that for the HRA. At this point, I think that we're at a. I'm not too worried. I mean, I think that there's a lot of momentum for the HRA. I think that there's a lot of good potential candidates. I, totally understand your reasons for changing, and wish you the best on that. In that, I think that it's a good moment to, at some point, once the new director is on board, to kind of take a pause on, and really just make sure that we're take a moment to circle back. I think to that to the strategic plan that we put together back in 2022 in partnership with the Minnesota Housing Project. We've had new commissioners since then. We've had new, and so we'll have a new director. I think that'll give us a chance to work together to develop some clear ideas about what goals ought to be for the next 1, 2, 3 years. And I think that the other, we're going to learn a lot over the next year about the housing shortage in Cook County. I mean, we're going to see, we're going to watch the take-up rate for the housing units that are being developed. We're going to see what happens with the market rates that are being, so I think we'll know a lot more about the market, 8 months from now than we do right now, and I think that's going to be important data to track and to take into account in terms of our plans for what for the coming years. So, anyway, that's a mouthful, but thank you for all.
Thank you. Just so that I don't have to turn beet red, I'm just going to assume you all are very generous. So thank you. You don't have to say anything else about me. What I am curious about, based on what the commissioners, and thank you, I have endeavored to do that, so I'm glad that was carried out in the scene. I think something that Commissioner O'Brien just said that's really worth contemplating, and I mentioned this I think in my email, is simply there is a question about absorption of what's going on right now, and we don't know all of the projects that will or won't start. Like one is making actually really good progress. I just went by again today, and I was like, gosh, that's like a thing that's really happening. Holy cow, the garages are up.
Roofs will be done today.
Yeah, totally. And they got lucky with the weather, and they know it.
Very lucky.
But the Heights is poised to start in the spring, and the projects that we have, set the stage for essentially all of the HRA work for those, aside from monitoring and disbursements, is done. Like our agreements are, and that was the endeavor here. The reason I mention it is just, I think as you're preparing to hire a replacement, and I'll be as involved or not as you see appropriate, I think, as even getting ready to post this, I think it's important to maybe think about what skill set you're looking for in the next director, because there may be a little bit of a pivoting, at least pause or pivoting moment. So I'll keep it at that, just to say, again, before you and whoever's going to be interviewing this candidates, to know maybe more particularly what you're thinking you need in the next director. That reflects a strategic plan, but before you hire that person, if you get another me, and they're like, all right, let's do some more multifamily or bigger projects, you're like, well, actually, we might want to, pivot a little bit. That would be my encouragement. Maybe think through that. Maybe the personnel committee could talk about that when you're looking at the job description on Friday.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Thanks for the thought,
Yeah.
Jason, there. Mr. Hanson.
Well, I'm going to talk about you, Jason, and go ahead and blush, but, you've done a fantastic job, and kind of goes without saying, but I think it's important to say these things out loud. Yeah, just an amazing job, which leads me to be dismayed but not too surprised that you have other opportunities, because obviously you have the horsepower to do pretty much anything you want to do in this field or any field that you choose. So I wish you, of course, the best of luck.
Thank you.
Can't thank you enough for, I mean, the accomplishments, and I wasn't even on the board for most of them, so I can't take credit, but I give you all, and especially you, Jason, credit for really getting a lot going and getting housing headed in the right direction after many years of talk and not much action. So thank you again, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
In terms of the future, I think your point is well said, that we might need a slightly different skill set. And I think to that regard, even though you are really good at reaching out to the community and being public and explaining things to people, I do still sense in the community that there's a little bit of misunderstanding generally about what the HRA does.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people think we do low-income housing, like really cheap low-income housing for really poor people exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
And that anything other than that is a waste of time. And I think that's unfortunate, because that's not our portfolio, and it's not what the county needs, frankly.
Yep.
I mean, it does need that, but it needs a lot more too. So it's a spectrum of needs. So I would just say that the next person needs to be outgoing and forthright in conveying the vision of the HRA and the mission of the HRA to the larger community, and the commissioners as well. They need to do that.
Yeah.
That's the only comment I have. Otherwise, I'd happily accept a clone. So,
I have a twin sister, but she's not a housing person. I don't think I would work very well.
she probably can handle it, though.
She's great.
If she's interested, let her know.
She's not interested then?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I just want to echo what everyone else has said. And you will be greatly missed, and good luck.
Thank you. I won't be gone entirely.
Yeah.
So I'll be
Okay.
I'm still, yeah, I don't know if well, I can share what I'm planning on doing if you
Yeah,
want.
that'd be great.
Sorry, I forgot. I thought I already did that. Yeah, well, I'm actually, of course, Joe Fredericks reached out to me instantaneously after the press release. So I have an interview with him right after this. So I'm actually, I used to own my own brokerage 5 years ago. I had it until recently. I let it go because I wasn't using it, because it was, one, I didn't have the time. And two, there's just too much potential conflict of interest in this work. It's such a small shore that I didn't want to deal with it. So I think in 5 years I helped 2 sales with friends. So it's just an expensive hobby to keep that going. But I've also had an LLC that I established about 2.5 years ago. And before I came up to Cook County, I contemplated, I love this work, and I love the whole North Shore region and the Northeast Minnesota region. And after trying to postpone it as long as we could to get things, on the right position, and then, of course, the county administrator left, and then Teresa, I was like, oh gosh, there's never a good time. I am actually starting my own development consultation practice, and so I'll be helping communities across the region with getting housing and other projects done.
That's very good news.
Yeah, I'm excited. There's a lot of need, and I'm hopeful that I can help other communities just like this. And if things come up, I'll still be around. So
So you will not be relocating to be able to work remotely?
correct. I'll be still living where I live now. Yeah,
That's very good news.
so that's what I'll be. So you might see me. A couple of the developers we worked with have said, "Great, so now you can come help us get stuff done." So you might see me on the other side of the table.
Very good.
That's a frightening prospect.
I have had a few people reach out to me and say, do you know what Jason's doing? Because we'd be interested in
That's
hiring him.
humbling. Yeah. So I have some at the beginning of the year, which does lead me to a question that isn't, and we can get to it, but I just want to remind the interim question. So if after, assuming you're done, Richard.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll let Commissioner Hockett or Johnson and Sullivan.
Do I get to share also?
I was trying
Yes,
to.
please. No.
Thank you.
We're going right around the horn.
I want to reflect on my very first conversation with Jason, which was over Zoom. It was an introduction to him by Doug Sanders.
Oh,
Because I, as running for county commissioner, kept saying, we need an apartment house, we need an apartment house. I didn't know how to make that happen. And there were some in the community say, we need an HRA, and I was resistant to another government organization. So Doug introduced me to Jason, and we had a very nice conversation, not about being an HRA necessarily.
Right.
It was about what can I do to help, and I learned so much in that conversation, and just really appreciated your passion for your work you do. And then we left, and I called up Doug, and I said, do you think we could hire him ever? How would that work? And it still took some time for us to get this process going, so I'm honored that 3 years ago we had this very first meeting, and I am so grateful that Jason did apply, and we did hire him, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you have done for our community.
You're making me regret my decision to decide to.
I hope so.
I'll still be here, so you can do that.
I had breakfast with Doug this morning.
Did you?
Cool.
Great.
Nice.
Thank you, Stacy, I appreciate it.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Well, and to continue with the connection with Doug Sanders. So, before the HRA was formed, we had a community leadership group. And we had a subcommittee that was focused on housing. And it was out of that group, and Doug Sanders and Mary Sanders sat on that community leadership subcommittee. We talked about housing. And Doug and I were doing a lot of reading and research, and this name, Jason Hale, showed up in the Duluth News-Tribune. And Doug made a call to Jason, and similar to what Commissioner Johnson said, that was the beginning of a really good thing for Cook County. And in addition to all the expertise and experience that you brought here, the other thing that really I feel really proud of is that you have demonstrated your knowledge and your understanding of finance, of policy, procedures, processes, working with the IRRR, working with our state and federal partners, which is a huge part of how we get housing in communities like ours. And you keep abreast of all the critical trends and the practices and conditions kind of inside and outside Cook County to help us. And you've just demonstrated a commitment to continuously enhance your professional knowledge by working with professional organizations. So I thank you on behalf of Cook County and all the other places that you've touched during your career. Thank you very much.
I think it should be mentioned that Doug Sanders reached out to me a year before the HRA was in existence.
Yep.
As a sort of pen pal during COVID, and I had a couple of Zoom meetings with him over several months. He was just trying to, how do we get housing in Cook County? And one day my wife and I came up to be tourists in Grand Marais for the weekend, and I told him we were going to be up here if he wanted to grab coffee. And he said, great. And so I thought we were just going to get coffee. He took me on a tour. I met Kimber Ross. I met James. I met everybody in the community. It was a 4-hour tour of Cook County. And it was a whirlwind. My wife said that was the most interesting coffee I've ever seen. And he really convinced me that Cook County would be a great place to be and to work, and he was right. And so I have all the optimism in the world that things will continue to go in the right direction if this board continues to lead it, and you'll find a fantastic second director. So thank you. I'm super humbled, and I'll still be around if things pop up. Unless they're really hard things, then don't call me in.
Don't take up fishing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, I'll finish up on this section of the meeting. As we all found out after Jason's review last April, 5 commissioners, I think, filled out evaluation forms with 10 checked pieces, rate 1 to 5 in each one of those categories, and there was not a single point missing on any of the reviews. I've never seen that before in my own experience, but it is a testimony to what Jason brought to the table with us. As I say it, he got the train on track, and the community had really a groundswell of support for doing something about housing, and the commissioners are referring to that. A lot of work was done, but through the EDA as well. A lot of housing study, there were a couple housing studies done. So there's plenty of data, and there was plenty of kind of a coalescence around housing as the most important issue in Cook County for the time being. It just had to be the priority. And so out of that came the HRA eventually, thanks to a lot of people really, and the county board especially, who had to authorize this. But then Commissioner O'Brien mentioned the Minnesota Housing Partnership session that we had, where we talked about strategies and long-term plan and whatever. What I remember about that was we voted on our three top values as an organization. Values: action, integrity, and inclusive. And those three, I think Jason has just done a great job to demonstrate that those values took hold, and we've been acting on that. We had a couple of concerns. One was being transparent, and the other was communicating. And honestly, I can't think of an organization that's been more transparent and communicated it, thanks to Jason, who did a great job with the different media sources and in the community. And what impressed me about Jason was he wasn't going to duck hard questions. He was absolutely able to express, what the reasons are and why we're making these decisions. And I just think he was, the total package is what I'd say. And so I thank Jason for what you did, what you brought to Cook County. You got the train on the track. But I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank Kristen, his wife, who A, designed our logo, B, got our website set up, and C, put up with Jason's hours and all that. And believe me, I said when I first met her after all this stuff started going on that I'd nominated her for sainthood, and I'm pretty sure she's made it by now. So anyway, please thank Kristen, because I know she's part of your team. And
I will. She deserves it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll show her this little clip of you saying that, and she'll call you and say, "You're right." No, I will say I am the only director you've had, so just wait. You'll have future ones, and you'll be like, "Oh, okay, never mind. What were we talking about?" So thank you. Interim. What are the board's thoughts about that? And again, we have a planned meeting on the 18th. And there were a couple of resolutions. I should mention this. The county board, commissioners, you know this, there's some remaining SLFRF funds, state and local fiscal recovery funds, part of the CARES Act funding. The county board is determining, hopefully next week, potentially the 3rd, and then at the last would be the 17th, I think, what to do with those remaining funds. I've been in communication with Auditor Powers, because he reached out and said, hey, we have some of these monies, and those are funds they have to allocate right by the end of the year. So it's pretty close to the wire here. And some of that could go to the HRA, and I've told him the 3 different buckets I think that would make the most sense. We could allocate it or designate it immediately. So I have a couple of resolutions drafted in the event the county board decides to allocate some future amount. I wasn't sure how long. I didn't know I was going to stay through the end of the year. But now that I'm here through the end of the year, we have 2 resolutions that are ready if the county board decides to do that. And I just wanted to, because it'll be a quick turnaround, again, we'll have one chance, I wanted to get your sort of nod that this is what we would allocate them for. And it depends, of course, on the amount, but Auditor Powers mentioned there's approximately $200,000 that they had that could be decided to contribute to HRA projects. I think there was another chunk that they were looking at other things. There's a whole bunch of things that you could spend the money on. But that was the number between $100,000 and $200,000. So I was advocating, in my mind, One would be to provide some match dollars from North Skogan when we submit the IRRR application. We don't have any match dollars that we were planning on that because that kind of came in sort of later in the game. We had already committed to ARPA funds we have. Two was to provide an additional amount of seed money for the envelope and energy improvement program. The second project was done successfully. They're very excited about it. We have a pipeline of eligible folks. We just don't have any money. And then the third was, if you recall, the Gunflint view is broken up into two tranches of affordability, 60% and 80% AMI. The 60% AMI units were tied to the state's SAHA funds. If you remember all these acronyms, Statewide Affordable Housing Aid, which was part of the 2023 big package at the legislature. That amount, the county has already approved for 10 years to go to the HRA. That's that affordable housing aid, was $85,000 a year. And the state said they were going to reduce it in 2025 by some amount, and then that would probably be the amount to continue for until the legislature changes it, if they ever did. That has been changed from 85 to 35. So
Wow.
a significant drop, more than anyone expected. So our agreement with this developer is, with the Gunflint view, is $40,000 a year for 10 years to keep those 11 units. It was a wash. It's a math wash. We just calculated how much, does it cost in rent for him to do this, and that's what it is. So obviously there's a little bit of a delta, $5,000 a year basically. So my thought was, if the county board approves another allocation, we hold some of that reserves just to make sure if there's a shortfall that it can continue. The agreement that we are in with them says, if we don't have the full amount, we can negotiate how many less units that could be, or they have the right to say, well, never mind. But they would have an interest in, I know them, they would have an interest in negotiating like maybe a couple less units or something like that. I would love to not have any reduction for 10 years. So my proposal would be some 50 to 75,000 or something would be in reserves just to, in case for the next 10 years we need to supplement SAHA. But I also have, with our current budget, I have money set aside in case for some of that. And of course, in future years, the HRA could ask the county for some supplemental $5,000 or whatever it is, right? So those are the three things that came to mind immediately that we could dedicate the funds to. And I wanted to get your sort of litmus test to see if that passes the smell test.
Any comments? Certainly sounds to me like those are directions we want to go in. I love the energy envelope program and, the idea of finding more money for that. It's one of the big needs that we really are just putting a little toe into the water with, but fixing up some of these older houses especially to get energy efficiency is really it's a key thing. The Noristogan, I would hope, would be, able to come to fruition here in the reasonably near future. And with regard to the Gunflint view, I like the idea of having a little reserve pot to make sure we're able to fulfill what we'd like to fulfill, whether they're concerned about it or not. I think it's some great uses. So, any other thoughts?
Need board action on this, or is it just to get a sense?
No, I have the resolutions drafted.
Yeah.
Because I thought we might have to do it at this meeting. But if you wanted to pivot at all or think about other things, I would change it, basically.
But we could address this in the December meeting.
Yeah, if the county board, again, the county board has to determine what they want to do with those monies.
Yeah.
If they decide that they want to allocate any amount of that to the HRA, those are the three uses that I thought made the most sense. That are also don't take a lot of, like we can allocate it right away and make sure we hit that timeline, the deadline. One other thing that I want to remind the board about is if Temperance Trails closes, and it looks like it's supposed to be on the agenda for the 11th, December 11th, if they close, there's $40,000 coming from that. I say if. I don't even know what the odds are. I've given up on giving odds to projects. If they close, there's $40,000 there. And One Roof, I encouraged them to make sure they take all of the 300,000 that we allocated for Birchwood Apartments. Because if they take it all, and when they close and repay the 250, the loan that we gave them, then that 250 is now recycled, and the HRA can use that for other reasons. But I'm fiscally pretty conservative about those things. You know, I don't want to count the chickens before they hatch, so something could fall through, and it would be great to just have a reserve in case. But I just want to remind you, there are a couple of other dangling chads, I guess, out there of reimbursements for things. So any concerns,
Just one question on the Saha shortfall. I wasn't sure I followed the arithmetic. Is that, you said, expectation was that they would be 85,000 a year and it's down to 35,000 a year, is that correct? Or am I understanding that is a per year figure? Or?
Yeah, so the first allocation in 2024 was 85,000, and we knew that the state was probably going to reduce that somewhat.
Right.
And so when we originally negotiated with them, we thought, well, I think 40 is probably a safe number. It's less than half of what the first, well, it wasn't. They reduced it to 35. So the first, we have in reserves for the first year.
Okay.
Because they haven't leased any, people aren't living there yet, so they don't get any money yet. But once the first year, and it's going to be on reimbursement. So once the first year of those units being rented at that amount comes to an end, then they show proof of those units being rented at that amount, and they get reimbursed $40,000.
Okay.
So we're approximately $5,000 a year short for 9 years. So 45,000.
Okay, good. So they didn't budget with the expectation that they were going to get 85. They budgeted based on.
Correct.
440.
We were supposed to get 85 a year, but
Okay.
I told them, well, what about 40 a year?
Got it.
So I was trying to be extra safe. I wasn't safe enough, apparently.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge amount, but I just want to,
No, that's clear. I didn't.
Okay.
I was trying to understand the 5,000. Now I get
Yep.
it.
Okay.
No, I think those all. I agree. Those are three very good priorities.
Okay. If you change your minds, email me.
Yeah, any concerns about this by any of the commissioners? Well, let's hope that the county does what we'd
No
like them
pressure.
to do. I'm sure there's other people knocking on their door as well, but just remember, we're here and we're active. We know how to spend money, so that's all key. Okay, other business, director's report. Got a few things.
We were on the agenda item for the interim,
Oh.
and I guess I just want to make. My thought is that it would be that if we realistically, I'm guessing we'll end up if things go well with somebody onboarding probably late January, and it might be a little bit later than that. I think. Jason, I think in one of the letters that you had sent, you'd offered that there'd be an interim through as long as the end of February. But I think in terms of our planning, I think it would be very worthwhile to have an interim director in place until the new person is onboarded, and then with a week overlap or something. I don't think it'll take a lot of overlap, but just there's some overlap with the new person, just to hand over the keys.
Well, I guess the question is, Jason, is that still an open possibility? You were fairly well documented as to how that might work and with a contract and those kind of things. Is that still a possibility?
Chair, at this point, yes, my preference would be to do, again, I didn't know that I'd be staying through the month of December. And I do have some obligations starting at the beginning of the year. So my preference would be to do interim through January, if that's needed. And then maybe there's some overlap. Ideally, you're right, we're able to, and that's part of the reason I wanted to keep the process of hiring and posting moving, so that we have effectively 2 months to find somebody, and I'm not disappearing. If something comes up, you can call me or email me or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm comfortable saying that I'm happy to help through January. Beyond that gets a little more dicey.
Okay.
Well, that
And my wife
puts in
said
a little
so.
little additional pressure on us to keep moving, so that's all right too.
It's doable, but
Yeah.
we'll need to have some, it's doable. Especially because I think if a new person came on, I think, again, I think the big concern would be that nothing falls through the cracks and with no director in place, and that, and that there's some connection between them, which could be informally done, after the person's in, and, anyway, I think we can work it out.
To be clear, if we find somebody and maybe there's a little couple week wiggle room there, I can work with you on that. I'm comfortable staying through the end of January. We'll see, beyond, like, saying another month or 2 months puts me in some hot water.
Yeah.
Potentially with 24 hours in a day limitation, so.
Yep.
So if, I don't know, the board would probably have to make some decision. It could be at the December meeting, whichever, about approving an interim role. So I just want to put that on your radar. You can do it today, you can do it in December, doesn't matter to me either way.
I'd suggest the Personnel Committee bring a recommendation on that to the December meeting.
Works for me. Thank you.
All right. Should we continue on now? The Heights?
Sure. These will be brief. Like I said, the Heights I've been continuing to work with Mr. Latz. Right now, I'm meeting with them in the next week or so to make sure everybody's on the same page with a certified payroll process and all of that. They did, of course, they issued the public bid for solicitation. They got one response. They accepted that bid. And now they're doing this extra pencil sharpening. But it looks like they're doing some final negotiating with some lenders. And I have the signed development agreement from them, and then I'll record that here at the county. But really the sort of decision-making point is just finalizing terms with that lender and then deciding when to close. And then they'll order their modules in January or so. So I'm not going to give odds again. I don't want to do that anymore. But it's looking good, and it looks like it would be completed in early summer, around the same time as Gunpla View, probably. So.
Well, I hope that the kind of slightly easing of interest rates is helping them, because I know that was really gummed up a lot of works, but especially their project was hurting.
Yes, it did help a little bit, although rates have not come down as much as people were hoping, because the Treasury or the bond rates are still higher than expected, the 10-year yield. So, second is just 1800 West. So actually I met with the city administrator today and EDA director, who, as a reminder, the EDA is actually technically the applicant, because the HRA is not authorized by statute to apply for a housing grant, which I think is interesting. But their cities and counties are, and then there's a little asterisk that says, also joint county city EDAs, of which there's one.
All of those, yeah.
All of those in the
Okay.
state. So we're also special, continue to be special. So obviously we received that 1.3 million, or the award was announced. I've notified that developer of my transition, and we're going to make sure that continues to go smoothly. I just talked to the state before this meeting on a phone call, the manager of this project. 16 units, and the only thing I think worth mentioning is the city, the HRA is going to have to continue to work with the city on getting, it's domino effect, of course. Just because we got the award doesn't mean that the thing's going to get built. But we're going to have to continue to work with the city on securing that property that they agreed to convey if the award was granted. So there will be some process there, but it's incumbent on the developer to enter into a development agreement with the HRA, which leads to my final point about this. There was some SAHA. Again, we thought we were going to get 85 plus a year. And so we tentatively said we could provide as match dollars some SAHA money. It wasn't a lot. I think it was $180,000 over 10 years. Mm-hmm. There are other resources that and I have them sort of loosely outlined that can help fill that gap. Not to mention the One Roof Community Housing's repayment of the $250,000. So, and I've explained this to him, and I'm not frankly overly concerned. It just helped us get the amount of match that we're looking for. But that's going to be that's going to be a spring, probably actually a summer by the time all the kinks are worked out and the state funding, et cetera, be a summer project start if that comes to fruition. So I'm just keeping these on the general radar of the public and of you folks, because it's like we talk about them and then they got to go quiet for 6 months until we get money. And so any questions about that project?
Is it still looking same plans that we've seen before?
The design? Unsurprisingly, the only question mark that would change it is there's a sort of a lighthouse-esque community structure that was proposed. That's not the cheapest thing to build. And so, as they do more drilling down into costs in Cook County, I'm sure that is probably going to change form, which is kind of my suspicion the whole time. But it's okay. If we get 16 units of quality housing at various income levels, that's a win. So we'll see what the final designs are.
Was that going to be phased?
They had originally proposed using the whole site for 2 phases, but
Yeah.
the city decided that they didn't want to do that. They wanted to keep one open for other commercial purpose. So right now, it's just the 16 units, yeah. Yep. Any other questions about that project?
Well, one takeaway is we got to be nice to Heidi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, she's going to be the pass-through, and she has the keys to the award there, so. And I filled her in on that, and we'll continue to work with her on
Great,
outlining that.
thanks.
Financials were attached, unless you had any questions.
Well, it's not a question, but it brings up a conversation I had a little earlier today after noticing that the Cascade Vacation Rental organization has been pulling out 1% on their rentals as voluntary contribution, and that total, at least through October, was now $39,475, which amazed me when I saw the figure. And I was prepared to, at this meeting, give full credit and admiration to Steve Serba and his group for doing this. Steve called me today and wanted to talk because he's been happy to do this, but he's now getting uncomfortable that they're the only ones in the county doing this. And I told him, when it was originally set up, my impression was that he would be leading a charge to recruit other businesses. And he's now really feeling that he's pretty well tapped out with his time and his efforts, and was asking, could we pick the ball up? Well, I don't think we can, because I think the conversations we had legally, the HRA cannot go out asking for voluntary contributions from other people. So that item sits there. He's not suggesting that they're going to stop doing what they're doing, but he'd sure like some company, and so would we. He'd like him to have company, because that's really, it's just priming the pump. And that 40,000, for example, is potentially another source of making things work on some of these projects, and it's really helpful. So I don't know further what to say or do, other than I did tell him that I thought it was not possible for us to take over the program. I'm sure if anybody's got any ideas of who might be able or willing to try to spearhead something like that, love to. And I see a commissioner waving her hand.
So my thought is that it might be possible for Steve to approach the Cook County Chamber of Commerce.
That's what I was thinking too.
A lot of our businesses, whether they're similar to Cascade Vacation Rentals or not, have issues with employee housing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I would strongly encourage that the chamber would be an organization to approach for that.
Jason, what do you know about the state housing tax credit program and contribution fund? There's just an article in the Star Tribune about that being fairly successful in other communities already. It's new, where people can get a tax credit for a donation of that sort, of this very sort that we're talking about.
Well, Bill, I think you know a little bit about that too. And fill in where I'm missing here. When I researched or looked into when it first came out, which is last year or so, one of the big questions or concerns a lot of folks had when using it was there was no guarantee the money you contributed would go in your community. So like if you wanted to provide donation for the Heights or whatever it is, they would try to allocate it for that, but that there wasn't a guarantee. So a lot of folks, so the state is trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? Trying to bring more awareness to this program because I want to get better utilized. And there were some donations across the state for sure, but a lot of the folks and the folks that I talked to in Cook County were only interested in providing it for a specific site or project. And because that wasn't a guarantee, they decided not to. Now the state knows that that's an issue. I've told the state that was some feedback, and so they're talking about is there a way to make sure that they go where they want to go?
Well, one answer potentially to that is Minnesota Housing Partnership, again, now has a website that lists a number of projects around the state by community that are asking for some of the tax credit funds. And I looked at it last year, possibly doing something at Gunflint View, but I thought better of that because it seems like that could be a conflict, and I don't. So that's an issue I had, but I'll try to. I have the website at home. I'll send it to the board here, and you can take a look at it. I've identified a development that I think I'd probably my wife and I would probably invest in. You make an investment, $1,000 I think is the minimum, and I forget what the max is, but and you get 85% of that back as a tax credit, and there's state income tax. It doesn't affect your federal tax liability, but it does affect your state tax, so that's about what I know about it. But I'll get the website out.
So I'm guessing the rationale in not guaranteeing that it be spent in your area is that if you don't have a project, then that money's in limbo forever.
Yeah, or the state just allocates it for some other project.
You
Well,
can,
right,
you
right,
don't
so
have
they
to,
could.
yeah,
They
you don't
could.
have to give it to a specific project. They have a general fund that,
Yeah.
but you have no idea then what'll happen to it. But,
Yeah.
yeah, at least you get the benefit of the tax.
But I'm assuming there'd be some pressure if you organized it on a community basis, say Cook County wide, there'd be some pressure for them to return some of that here if we had a
I would sure
project.
hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I think it's the lack of guarantee, unless, again, they change how that allocation works, which they could do.
Yeah.
2023 is a pretty gangbuster year for new programs, and they're building the airplane while they're flying it a lot of the
Right,
time,
right.
so. I'm not trying to besmirch the potential virtue of the state tax credit program. That's just the feedback that I heard. And one of the challenges is these projects can take multiple years. You put it in, and like the Heights, it's taken a little longer to get in the ground.
Well, this isn't an investment, right? This is, you give the money, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Yeah,
It's not like the community investment fund here.
Exactly, you're
where
holding it for that
expecting a
specific-
return, yeah.
you
This
give the
is-
money, you hope it goes where the thing is.
It's a gift.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And you get 85% back via tax credit if
Yeah.
you have the tax liability to justify that. So,
Well, it might be something to put Serba onto, She might be- or the chamber. Maybe that's the route to get people interested.
yeah, when Steve and I first met about two years ago, I don't even know, we met with a couple of businesses, and Chair Gibler's right, we can't solicit for funding. And I don't think I wouldn't want to do that anyway, except for the county board. We can ask the county board for funding. But we can't ask private citizens and businesses. But I think the appeal was, and people who initially voiced some potential interest, the appeal was that they knew those funds would go into projects in Cook County. And in CVR's case, as a case study, they added a 1% onto their lodging fees. So it didn't cost them anything, except for the administrative piece, and then, of course, setting up the check system. And that was appealing, is like, well, we're passing it through to the tourism community to sort of, they don't even know they're helping us with our local housing problem. So there's more of a direct connection there now, for various reasons that Bill already said, that just, we lost steam on that, and we were gonna merge, and we didn't merge, and so the conversation just stopped. But I think the chamber is a great place to stop and say, hey, look at the example of the $40,000 that CVR has given without question, and we can show, like, that money was used, for example, to help Hamilton Habitat get property. Or, we can point to it's going directly into projects.
Yeah, it has to go directly to projects. It can't go to our overhead or.
That's all covered by the county levy, so anything that CVR has given us has gone for project development purposes. So, anyway, do what you want with it, I suppose, but I think it could be a really cool model if we could get more folks on board. It'd be a testament to Cook County, like, folks deciding to step up and.
Well, I think there's a ton of, in my opinion, having spent my life in the Cook County business community, there's a ton of potential there. I mean, I can think of 6 of the major businesses off the top of my head that would gladly participate in that. It just needs somebody to organize it.
Yeah, and it can't be us, that's the problem.
Right.
We can go along and explain how it could be used.
Yeah.
And give examples, but we can't ask for anything, so.
Well, I will talk to Steve about the Cook County Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
That's a great suggestion. And sounds like
Tell him
that.
if he needs help, I'd be happy to help him.
Okay,
May I ask a question?
sure.
So I understand this board can't go out and solicit. If we had an advisory board, could that board have a subcommittee of donations?
I think
And
as,
seek donations?
unless, well, the advisory board could if there was no commissioners on it.
That's what I'm saying. If you had a board, a separate board that was about housing and was.
Oh, I see. Like a community, kind of like the
Yeah,
community leadership
community-
group that we used to have.
Yeah, I just wondered if,
I don't see why not. I mean, anybody can go out and say, hey, you should donate to the HRA, as long as you're not, part of the HRA.
but it could be, I'm just wondering if it comes from, yes, we recognize this group as a housing organization. I just didn't know where that line is of
That's a good question. I don't know. the
you
answer to that.
soliciting or interacting with a group that is doing that.
I think you'd probably want to keep it a clear distinction between the HRA and whomever is
Okay.
doing the solicitations. That, my 2 cents, just to
All right,
make sure
that
there's no
scratches that.
ambiguity. Doesn't mean that there couldn't be an advisory board that's not affiliated with the HRA that is passionate about how, like, what we
Well,
connect as a West End.
That's why I asked
Yeah.
about this tax credit thing.
Makes sense.
If a group wanted to do that and organize around it,
Yep.
independent from us, of course,
Yep. Yep, maybe all of them.
we could be a beneficiary of that.
Yep.
And it is a very attractive offer. The tax credit is hugely attractive.
So that, no questions on the financials? Okay. That's all I had unless there are other topics.
Well, a kind of a concurrent concern here, our audit. And I spoke with Brady today as well, just to confirm what I remembered was, the agreement with Redpath, our auditor, is they were going to be done by June. Then October came, and I think it was October 11th, where they committed to getting it done by November 1st. Now it's November 1st and past that, and they hope to get it done by Thanksgiving. And so, one of the issues is the EDA's got the same thing, in the sense that it's the same auditor, and our 2 audits, the EDA and the HRA, have to be done before the county can finish its own audit, because we're component units. And so Brady's not happy, I'll say it that way, and I think I talked to him about maybe for next year, we should be doing something other than that. I mean, we sent out an RFP, which we need to do, and really got no other response. And the state, which had been auditing the county by itself, has encouraged other aspects. They're very clear that they're overwhelmed at their level. So I just bring it up as something that we need to pay some attention to. That we've seen a draft of the audit and the letter and all that. There's nothing of any concern to speak of there in terms of issues that they found with our operations or our books or anything else. I mean, it's a
What is
pretty
the issue
simple.
then? They're just busy or don't care or?
Yeah, I think busy, because if they're out doing these audits for, smaller entities, which is kind of their specialty, it sounds like, there's a lot of people who need that. And that was, the state auditor was in town maybe 2 years ago, I think, and just said that they were overwhelmed, and that's why audits were taking so long, so encouraged governments to reach out to the private audit firms. And that's what we did, and tagged along with the county as they did it as well. So I just pointed out as a, frustrating aspect of life, and we need to think about some options, and I think we can do that with the county and the EDA, because we're all in the same boat with the same auditor. And I think really the promises of being done in June is what kind of concerns me, that it just.
They did say which year, right?
I actually
Good
did check
point.
that, and yes, they did say 2024.
Well, I
So-
think, obviously if we continue a relationship with them, we'll have to have built-in performance benchmarks with penalties
Yeah,
Yeah,
based on this experience. And if they're not happy with that, we got to find somebody else to do the work.
I think what.
if we
You
can.
you can't contract to do work and just not do
and
it.
not- So they've
Sorry.
so they have the draft. The sort of confusing thing is, there's a principal, Andy Herring, who's the gentleman the county's director we worked with as well. He needs to do a final review of that draft that his staff does, and he just hasn't had the time or been able to complete that.
Well, he was on vacation for a few weeks. I mean, it was
Yeah,
too-
June to
right,
November, though.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weeks in there. I think that I can say what I think. It doesn't matter. You can fire me. I think the concern is that we reached out to, and I personally reached out to auditing firms I knew in the Duluth metro area, and I talked to 5 myself. I know these 2 gentlemen reached out to a couple as well. The HRA's account by itself is so small that a lot of firms just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Same thing with the EDA. They have the same issue. So if there is a way for the county EDA and HRA to do a suite and say, hey, 3-for-1 special, and then these entities reimburse the county, you might get more competitive attraction there. Otherwise, my concern is you can do another RFP and then you get, one response again from the same outfit. So, anyway.
And we expected to be charged a little extra this year because they were basically setting up our books. I mean, we've got a bookkeeper, but the first formal segment of HRA is a standalone entity, essentially. That's what they've done, and that takes extra effort. I get that from what a normal audit would be, but just a concern out there. So, but I think you're right. I think we really need to play off of the county, because otherwise, we didn't have much luck finding anybody else who'd be willing to audit us.
Or if their fee was pretty high.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, any other commissioner items here? Well, hearing none, is there a motion?
I'll move to adjourn.
It's been moved, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thanks very much.
Yes, John.
Yeah.
thank you, John.
What is this?
I meant to discuss that. It just, my notes from the meeting I went